Welcome back. Now we start in earnest. On Thursday, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Reuben Abati, announced the suspension of the Central Bank Governor, Malam Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, on the instruction of the President, of course. And immediately the announcement was made that the most senior Deputy Governor, Dr. Sarah Alade, will serve in an acting capacity until investigations have been concluded regarding certain breaches of enabling laws, due process, and the mandate of the CBN. Now, to look at 5 years of Sanusi's, shall we say, rule, our CBN governor with us this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Liborous Oshomah. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Always my
a legal practitioner, as well as Mr. Ken Odidika, also a legal practitioner.
Thank you very much.
Both lawyers. There must be plenty of legal implications to all that is happening right now. Now, let me begin with you, Mr. Oshomah. 5 years of Lamido Sanusi, as CBN governor. The way that the announcement was made on Thursday, and looking at all the events leading up to that suspension, one would get the impression that the CBN governor fell out of favor after he had done things over the years which the whole country applauded. What's your take?
Ordinarily, I would rather say maybe the government fell out of favor with him, and then if you look at the CBN government right from his first day in office, the first few months in office, the decisions he took, it's been in controversy from day one. He came, even though Soludo in his time believed that, even though we had the banking crisis during Soludo's time, but we felt as an economist, we knew as an economist, Soludo was able to manage some of these challenges without raising the kind of alarm that the CBN, Sanusi raised. And then also at that time, we know you can't take away from the banking industry at that time. Apart from a few other sectors, they were the major sector in the economy that we're employing. And then with the alarm, till today, our banks have still not been able to recover, from that crisis. And then after that came the issue of the Boko Haram crisis, the 25%, the allegation that the National Assembly, consumed 25% of the budget, and then the members called for his head, and then subsequently the donations to the Boko Haram, the statement credited to Sanusi, and then few months to the expiration of his tenure, even while all of this were going on, I think after he submitted the 2011-2012 detailed statement of account for the CBN, there were issues, there were queries raised, and then referred to the Financial Advisory Council, and then also he was queried, and then he responded. And while all of these were going on, few months to the expiration of his tenure, Sanusi suddenly decided to hit out at the government for which he's a member, part and parcel of. And for me, really, I think if you want to do that, if you want to be a critic of the government, it's better to be out of that government. And then also, as a CBN governor, as a chief treasurer of the country, you need to be very accurate with your figures. And if a chief treasurer of the country comes out to say that for 1 year plus, that money had not been remitted to the treasury, and then you are still a treasurer, what have you been doing? Why did it take you that long for you to raise the alarm? Why did you have to wait till...
I'm sorry to interject here. When you talk about that one, you're probably referring to the 49 million.
Yes, 49 to 10.8 to 12 to 20.
But if you have a situation where this chief treasurer, inverted commas open and close, has already written a letter to the president Do you blame that chief treasurer?
When was this letter written? The letter, that's the letter that raised the alarm that we're talking about now.
Yes.
That's $49.8 billion had not been remitted to the treasury. This, we're talking about oil revenue, not for 2 months, not for 1 month, not for 1 day. We're talking about revenue for a year plus. And so, at what point did you suddenly realize that this...
at what point do you think one should raise an alarm?
If you look at the total revenue we're talking about, 10 billion approximately should be
dollars.
1/3 of, we should be a quarter of our total earnings for a year, dollars now. And so, if for 3 months, as a treasurer, money had not been remitted, you don't even have to wait for 3 months. And then also, as a treasurer, you need to know where money comes.
Sorry, Liborous. If for 3 months and you have been raising issues with the person who's supposed to be remitting,
these are not in the public domain. Nobody, Sanusi himself had not come out to say that for 3 months had been on this matter. No, that's not the issue. So I would not want to assume issues that are not. What we're saying is, and then very germane here. Thereafter, NNPC came out and said, no, we have remitted what we ought to remit. The figures that you even read out are not even correct. If we go by your figure, this is the actual quantity of crude that had been lifted, and this is the amount that we ought to have remitted, and this is what we have remitted. And then a few weeks later, the same man came out to say, in ridiculing that office, oh, I'm sorry, it's no longer 49.8. It's now 10.8 billion. For me, I think all of this should have been done underground. So when you come out with your figures, people would solidly believe you, stand behind you and say, look, this man knows what he's talking about. But the way he went about it, it now shows that all of a sudden from 49 to 10, 10 billion is much, I agree, but for somebody at that level, I think it's somebody, all of us, once you speak, what to believe. You know, but for me, I now started, I looked at it, I remember I was even on this station when these issues were, and I came out and I said, look, NNPC, just like you don't need the advice of the Attorney General to know that NNPC does not remit gross. You cannot run a business and expect me every proceeds I make from that business should be remitted to my partner. And so these are the issues. And then also CBN itself is not in as much as the laws try to protect the autonomy of CBN. CBN is not a sovereign of its own. The way CBN governor was going about it was as if CBN was a different country. The CBN governor was a different president from another country, as distinct from the Nigerian that we have. Okay. And so, for me, in concluding this, I think being a public servant who is subject to the laws of our country, even as much as you have the CBN Act trying to protect him from arbitrary use of power. Also, being a public servant, he cannot be excused from the interpretations of who the public servant is by virtue of the Interpretation Act also. So you need to marry all of these laws together. And on that, I would say I will not fault the president.
Okay. Ken, what's your own thought? Especially based on what Liborous has said.
I have various issues with Lamido Sanusi. Very brilliant man. But he seems not to appreciate the enormity of the responsibilities of the office he occupied. A central bank governor is not supposed to be so talkative. Yes, he has power for elocution. He went to an excellent secondary school, so naturally he will speak very good English. And whether with his Fulani musical voice, he will charm people. But that is from Hollywood. That's for P Square and all that. For a central bank governor to be in every forum talking both about the economy and other things that are not related to the economy, that was unbecoming of Sanusi as central bank governor. In fact, I could go as far as saying that Sanusi actually was irresponsible in discharging or not discharging his responsibilities as central bank governor. Now, having said that, when Sanusi, because he talked about how Nigerians were clamoring for him and all that, when Sanusi assumed office, and then he came into the banking crisis, which actually, as at that time, was not really crisis. The person that made banking crisis was Sanusi. Because, like my colleague here said,
I beg your pardon, Ken. I beg your pardon. If you remember, there were certain banks on the brink, and if they had gone under, people would have lost their life savings.
It's easy for us to say there are certain banks on the brink. Did they tell you those banks are on the brink? That's what I'm coming to. Because Professor Lamido was already handling these issues.
Like the Spring Bank.
Naturally, there will be banks that not anywhere in the world that will have issues. Now, maybe the numbers here were a bit high, and somebody was already handling them. Remember, he said you must recapitalize. So minimum is 25 billion. Some couldn't make it. They had to merge. Some just went on their own. Some merged. So that was the first step. Now somebody came in, went on air to say this place is messed up. That is the burden of the economy. Oil is just to bring in money. That's oil is not economy.
But the backbone of the economy, when you have a situation where
go to town and start shouting like a motor park town. That's not called the crisis. That's what I'm saying. I'm very careful with my choice of words. There was really no crisis. There were problems. There were issues that were being attended to, that were being addressed. What turned it into a crisis was when the central bank governor went on air to say that banks are failing. CBN, the executives, the MDs and so on, that raped pillaged their institutions. And now, while he was even doing that, if it was even done after the noise, if it was done in a fair and transparent manner, that would say have been okay. But what about it in such a manner that he already had his destination in mind? He was only driving there. He had decided the people he would give which banks to. Which was where the issue of some banks.
I'm sorry. There are certain things that
so
you can say.
Because it's
I know.
So banks failing and money would have gone. Some of the banks that are existing today that swallowed banks that were doing much better, that were actually bigger than they. In some cases, they were owing those banks money. You now took them and gave to the smaller banks.
Like which one?
Like Intercontinental Bank and Access Bank.
Intercontinental
and Access Bank. Like FinBank and
FCMB.
Okay, but is it about the size of the bank? No, sorry, let me ask the question. If you have a bank that is so big that has, let's say, something in the region of 1,000 naira, and then you have a bank that has 100 naira, and the one that has 100 naira is performing and it's got good corporate governance in terms of making sure that people don't owe and money are getting lost in that way, the 100 naira is doing a good job. And the one with 1,000 naira is going to cause such great mayhem. Do you then say, okay, well, merge the smaller one to the big one and let it go to rot?
Based on what you said,
yes,
I would rather have the 100 naira one take the 1,000 naira one. That is, remember all you said.
Yes.
Oh, corporate governance. Oh, doing very well. Doing well monies. In fact, the 100 naira is intact. While the other 1,000 naira is actually not intact. But the reverse was the case here.
No, that's not what you said earlier. You said that the big ones are being given to the smaller ones, and that's what I'm implying.
You gave there's some parameters. Yes, you gave.
Yes.
And I'm saying that rather than the small ones having those good